So this last part, part 3 of section 8.4b, the last thing we're going to talk about is graphing a reflection. And again, we've done this before. We're not flipping over the y-axis. It kind of doesn't really, I don't know, it probably has a place somewhere, but not here. So we're really just going to flip over the x-axis. And we know that when we do that, we're just negating the whole thing. Okay, so here we have this problem. I'm going to go through those steps again. Number 1, I have my amplitude is -2. Okay, immediately that should give you some red flags right there, seeing that negative, so you know that it's going to be reflected over the x-axis. So here's A. Okay, again, my period is 2 pi over b, and b is 2/3. So if I flip this, or I multiply by the reciprocal, the 2's cancel, and my period is 3 pi. Not only is this going to be flipped, but it's also going to move to the right by pi over 2. And it's not going up and down at all. Okay, so we've got that. So the second step then, y equals k, that's my midline, and it's not moving up and down, so y equals 0. So again, we have this line right here. Okay, so this is where it gets a little tricky. Again, I am only going to focus on this part. Now, one thing that I don't know if you remember, when we talk about the amplitude, it's always the absolute value. -2 isn't going to really help me. I know that it's 2 units. It doesn't matter what direction they're going in. So I'm just going to focus on this, and I'm going to use my little cheat sheet because this was kind of hard to do. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so 3 pi is my period. Half of that is 3 pi over 2. Halfway between those two is 3 pi over 4. And then halfway between these two is 9 pi over 4. And I just got that by adding the two together and finding the average. So this one, the arithmetic is a little trickier. Just adding things together. I'm going to go through it kind of fast, but you'll see what's going on. This is very similar to the last one, except for one thing at the very end. Okay, so I've got sine again. So I'm starting at 0. My amplitude is 2. So up and down, we've got 2. So I start here, I'm going up 2, back to 0, down 2, and up here. All right, so here it is. All right, but this one is going to move me to the right pi over 2. So I'm going to look again at my 5 points that help me, and I've already put them on there physically, but we've got 0, 0, we've got 3/2 pi, or 3 pi over 2, 0, and we have 3 pi, 0, so those are all of my x-intercepts. My maximum is 3 pi over 4 and 2, and my minimum here is 9 pi over 4, -2. Okay, that's my baseline right here. So now I need to add, okay, because it's horizontal, I need to add pi over 2 to every single x value. Okay, so this is going to become pi over 2, 0. 3/2 pi plus 1/2 pi is 4/2 pi, which is 2 pi. So 2 pi, 0. 3/2 plus, or excuse me, 3 pi plus 1/2 a pi is 3/2 pi. So 3 pi over 2, 0. I'm just making sure. Oh no, excuse me, that's going to be 7. Yeah, it would be 3.5. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, 7 pi over 2. Dan, you're probably smiling right now and raising your hand. Okay, so this one then, when I add pi halves to it, I get 5 pi over 4, 2. And then this one is 9/4 pi plus pi over 2 is 11 pi over 4 and negative 2. Okay, this looks really complicated, I know, but the thing to just kind of focus on is that you've got to add pi over 2 to each one of these x values, and then you get these new ones. Now the very last thing that you need to do is you need to make all the x's negative. So this becomes a negative, and since this is already a negative, it becomes a positive. So when I come back over here, I've got pi over 2. This is going to be tricky trying to figure out where they are. But it's going to move over. I've got pi over 2, 0. This is going to come here. Oops, excuse me. This is going to come down here. This is going to come up here. This is going to come up here. And this will come right here. So it moves over and it gets flipped. So let me just show you on this one. It's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard to tell. This is the original, and you can kind of see where it's coming and where it's hitting. This is when it's moved over pi over 2, okay? And then it gets flipped. So these are actually pretty cool looking. All right, I will have your homework assignment in Big Ideas, and you'll also see it listed on your homework. So rewind this. I know that this was kind of a mouthful. Rewind it, look at it again, and try not to make it harder than it is.